Welcome to CoBB, Conversations on the Business of Brands with Sudeep Chawla and Sharan Raghavan.
Sudeep, if our listeners had no clue how old we were, you are hell-bent on telling them we are the older boomer uncle generation of marketing.
No, why would you say so? I'm in fact trying to make sense of something that a lot of the new age marketers would have heard, but might not have gotten a chance to practice. And I'm trying to make a strong case for it.
Yeah, but are they really interested in TV marketing?
See, I think TV, I've just said TV plus plus. The idea is what I mean by TV plus plus is proposition, core proposition marketing. You can do it on digital also, it doesn't matter. The core question that you are asking, if you were asking that, is are people interested in doing proposition based thematic marketing, or has performance marketing taken the cake already?
I'm saying performance marketing has taken the cake already if I'm talking to the youngsters. But I'm willing to hear you out. So what brought about this thought in your head?
No, I think I've been reading a number of posts about it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I hear some of the theorists as well as some of the marketers or startup entrepreneurs who have built some good brands, starting as digital first and then expanding to offline, etc., one consistent observation that all of them have shared is the need for brand building, and which is different from a continuous feed that you get on just performance marketing or growth hacking or funnel marketing or growth marketing, etc., etc. So that sort of sparked this thought, and then I read one article, and I'll possibly will upload the link in the show notes.
So
that kind of led me on this
let me
rabbit hole.
then frame this question differently. We
Okay.
did an episode on integrated marketing campaigns, right?
Yes.
So when we did IMCs, we always had the TV as the central medium. And that was the main thematic brand campaign that we do. And everything else was kind of built around the main TV campaign. How has that changed today? Because for a lot of the brands, especially the digital first brands, TV may not be the primary medium.
Correct.
So how has that changed? How do you plan for an IMC that way?
Okay, excellent. So that's a good way of, I think, contextualizing this entire discussion. You're right that a lot of the traditional marketers who have handled big brands, that is how they would have operated, that a big proposition work would happen. A brand would come up with a campaign. The campaign then would break on TV, and everything else is surround medium. It kind of supports it, does the job of being a message multiplier, right? Or it adds on some different layers to the message, right? We've done an episode on this earlier, that how do you assign a role to IMC, etc. Now this was true, Sharan, in the pre-media clutter area. Yeah, because, and I'm focusing much lesser on the medium, I'm focusing on this way of working, because at that point in time there weren't too many media options. So whatever you do on TV with a lot of surround, etc., you had a great chance of getting noticed and then being remembered.
True, I agree.
Right?
Right now, there's so much of communication being force-fed into consumers. It's difficult for them to even differentiate one from another.
Correct. And in fact, when you are evaluating campaigns via research, for example, we talk about two kind of metrics. One metric is your simple cut through, executional cut through, whether what you showed, your story, etc., elements of the story, are they memorable or not? And the second part is branded cut through, whether people remember what brand would this ad come from. Now in the earlier era, your executional cut through, still there was a good chance that you might get decent numbers on executional cut through, and the battle was always of branded cut through, whether people will remember the brand or not, whether it is very well integrated or not, etc.
Right.
These days, just getting executional cut through is so difficult, and hence you see brands taking one of the two ways. Either they opt for something so different, something so unique that it kind of stands out, or they opt for what I call as continuous salience approach. So they'll keep saying the same thing in different ways, so that even if it doesn't stand out, just by the power of repetition and rote, you will possibly tend to remember it.
Got it. So most marketers, right, not just
Hmm.
today, always have aimed for efficiency, right? Now, if I want my marketing or advertising investments to be efficient, it is all about my marketing objective. So, are there any marketing objectives that you will define to say how I can make my advertising more efficient?
So I would still say that the objectives still remain the same that
Okay.
always were. You always started from salience. You wanted consumers to remember your brand, and you wanted consumers to purchase your product, right? So there is salience and then there is purchase. Now,
In Byron Sharp's words,
yeah,
mental availability, physical availability.
physical
That's pretty much
availability,
what
as
this
simple as that.
boils down to.
Correct. So now, if you remember, we have spoken about the purchase funnel quite a few times. So there is salience, and then there are some sort of mind measures, etc., etc., and finally it comes down to physical behavior of buying the product, right? So my proposition to you and via this discussion to everybody out there is to say that in the age of significant clutter, these are the two areas that the brand need to continuously think about. First part is consistent saliency.
Okay.
I would have said saliency or salience in the yesteryears. I've added the word consistent because of the sort of media clutter that all of us are exposed to.
Can you explain that? What's the difference between just salience and consistent salience?
So, my hypothesis is that unless you are creating such deep rooted mental connections in a consumer by just one exposure or one campaign, you will need to keep reinforcing your positioning and your life and your role in consumer's life over and over again consistently to remain salient.
Got it.
Creating salience is easy, remaining salient is difficult these days.
Right.
Right? So therefore consistent salience is the name of the game, number one. And I'll possibly talk about a little bit more about what I mean and how are brands doing it, etc. The second metric, Sharan, I would say is while salience allows you to create mental availability in consumer's head, finally when the consumer goes on to buy your product, again when they are shifting down the purchase funnel, there are quite a few brands trying to snatch them away with variety of offers, etc., etc. So therefore that's the second objective that I'll add in consumers in marketers goal sheet, that you have to prevent funnel drop off. Yeah. So therefore two objectives: consistent salience
Which
and
feeds the funnel?
preventing funnel drop off. These are the two things I'll add
Got it. Okay.
as KRAs.
Okay. So I get what he's saying, Sudeep, about consistent saliency and about preventing drop off in the funnel. Now, talking in the language of our listeners who are predominantly working in the digital domain,
Yeah.
how would this translate into my execution?
Okay. So, first part is consistent salience. So, consistent salience is all about working out a proposition that you want to deliver to your consumers. Now, usually brands do that by creating some kind of a campaign, some kind of an advertising, etc. By sometimes riding on an occasion like a Diwali or a Holi or Independence Day, etc. But the core delivery that they have is of their proposition, right? It might be contextual, etc. What they also do then is to create the consistency that I spoke about, is to create communities. Yeah. For example, your social media community, your own social media channel, your Instagram, your Facebook, your LinkedIn, your Snapchat, etc. And then utilizing that community to repeatedly deliver messages about your proposition to your consumers. So at least the ones who are connected to you, who are part of that community, they are getting this repeated reinforcement of your core message over and over again.
Got it. But I have a question here.
Yeah.
I would equate this to a lot of share of voice that we used to discuss about TV marketing, TV advertising.
Yeah.
Now, that was always a function of the amount of money you could throw at the communication and get the GRPs. Now, in the digital domain also, is it a function of the budget you're willing to spend?
On this one, this is very interesting, Sharan, and thank you for asking this question. Consistent salience in my mind actually is more about effort, less about the money. It doesn't cost much to put a social media post or even to post it, right? But it requires tremendous amount of effort to work out first a positioning or a proposition. Number two, work out what will be your constant nature of voice that you will create, what kind of persona would you hold for your consumers, and then have this consistent and persistent team that works on delivering that messages over and over again. And I would therefore say it is much less about budgets, Sharon, in this case, because you're not, this is actually almost owned media, this is not paid media, right? In the earlier era, when you were talking about share of voice, you were talking about paid media.
Correct.
Right? So therefore, you use a little bit of paid media to deliver your proposition for the first time to establish it. And then you use earned media or owned media to keep reinforcing that proposition.
I think that's
And
a
hence,
brilliant point. Brilliant
and hence
point.
brands talk about communities. Right? Community of passionate people who are either using your product or who have used your product and have recommended your products to others, etc., etc. So that's what I think this is all about.
Got it. So if you were to say, in the sticking to the funnel analogy, the consistent saliency is about feeding the funnel.
Correct.
And the next part is about basically preventing funnel drop off. So how does my execution work there?
Correct. So you're rightly said, consistent salience is about feeding the top of the funnel. Now that you've fed it, you want to prevent leakage, right? Which is where performance marketing comes in, right?
Okay.
Now, the core point is that that there are generic keywords that the consumers would search for. Then there are branded keywords that the consumers would search for. Now, generic keywords are something that are could be equally split depending on your market share within the category. And if you are the one who is creating salience there are greater chances that when consumers are searching for generic keywords, they actually are searching for you. But your brand is still not strong enough such that they have moved to branded keywords, right?
Okay.
And consumers searching for branded keywords exactly means that they want to buy you.
Okay.
So in both these places, what you want to do is over a period of time, by doing great consistent salience, you want to increase the share of branded keyword searches amongst the total search volume that your category or your product has.
But if I were doing that, right? Let's say this reminds me of my distributor at Henkel in Indore.
Yeah.
Henkel was a very south dominant brand.
Correct.
Our own distributor in Indore would refer to Henko as Henko wala surf. So that is basically the bottom of the funnel. Surf is what's dominant there, right? Now, with a lot of the new age brands focusing on the bottom of funnel execution, nobody is preventing them from using my brand keyword on their brand and pulling away the
nobody is. Yeah. Correct. And that is why you need to guard against leakage.
So how do I guard? Because it almost, while there is effort in building the salience, this seems a lot more functional, as in more tangible for me to grab people from the bottom of the funnel. Why even bother building there? Why can't I just?
I think it is both the things, Sharan. Number one, you need to do performance marketing to ensure that people who are liable to come to you or who are ideally want to come to you, they are not drawn away. Right? And hence there is element of performance marketing needed these days by almost every brand. And the question you are asking possibly is something that every startup owner or a marketer would ask, that if I am spending on performance marketing, why do I even need to populate the top of the funnel?
Exactly. Because not like I can do away with one, right? I have to do both.
You have to do both. And the point is, and this has been a consistent battle in everybody's head, whether it is branding or performance marketing, right? What I'm proposing now, it is branding and performance marketing, right? And this is what you will read in case studies of almost all the successful brands, which is about the fact that the more your awareness or salience is, the better the ROI of your performance marketing campaign is. Your ROAS is going to become better and better if you're doing a great job at consistent salience. If you don't do a good job there, right, at the very least, your ROAS is not going to improve. And that I'm saying at the very least. Because if your competitor is doing a great job of salience, then your ROAS is only going to go worse.
Correct.
Right? So, and I read this post and I've copied the link of it, and I would want you to, want everybody listening to this episode to possibly go through the show notes and click on it. It shows very clearly a linear relationship between conversion ratio and awareness levels. Yeah. The more people are aware of your brand, the better your conversion ratio of your performance marketing campaign will be. As simple as that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I remember you mentioning this even when we spoke about Nike and Airbnb, how
Yeah.
Airbnb had mastered the Airbnb wala search, as in people
Correct.
looking for Airbnb.
Search. Yeah.
And
Correct.
even the promo bit, right? It kind of, to put it in simpler language, says sticking to Henko and Surf.
Yeah.
Henko giving a 1+1 offer will have some traction. But if Surf gave the same 1+1 offer, far, far greater traction. And that's the power of the brand, which is to be used to build the funnel, as a feed the funnel.
Now, Surf, for example, populates the top of the funnel by doing great work, and then it fights, and it is almost doing performance marketing on the shop shelf.
Absolutely.
It is preventing share being taken off by some of the other brands like Henkel or Henko Wala Surf. So the idea, therefore, Sharan, was to establish this branding and performance marketing, to say that if you are wanting to get the best bang out of your marketing bucks, then you must look at your investments holistically, and you must look at assigning budget to both top of the funnel as well as bottom of the funnel. Doing just one is going to prove inefficient going forward.
It makes a lot of sense. You're saying, even when you're thinking IMC without TV, it's still got to have an IMC thinking, where you're thinking for the consumer, getting an insight, building a proposition, a brand narrative, and using it to feed the funnel, and then using performance marketing to protect the funnel for conversion. I think that's brilliant. I think that's very, very timely advice for all our listeners. Thank you so much.
I hope so.
Thank you for listening to CoBB, Conversations on the Business of Brands with Sudeep Chawla and Sharan Raghavan. Subscribe and learn more at cobcast.net.